A struggling father, desperate to provide for his disabled daughter, walks into a diner with a heart full of uncertainty. Little does he know, a simple act of kindness from an unlikely stranger is about to change their lives forever, sparking a chain of events neither could have predicted. Before we dive into this heartwarming story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an emotional tale like this. Now, let's get started. It was a quiet afternoon at the diner, the kind where nothing much happens and the hum of daily life continues in the background. But that changed the moment a man walked in, his face lined with exhaustion. He pushed a wheelchair with a young girl sitting in it, her frail body seeming out of place in the lively atmosphere of the diner. The girl was about 6 or 7, but there was an unmistakable sadness in her eyes. She had a condition that made it nearly impossible for her to feed herself. The father, though visibly tired, did his best to help her. But it was clear they had both been fighting this battle for a long time. His hands shook slightly as he tried to spoon-feed her, but she struggled, pushing the spoon away, frustrated and unable to eat. Their table felt isolated in the corner of the room, as if the world around them had disappeared. No one noticed their struggle until Sarah, the waitress, caught sight of them. Sarah was young, not yet out of high school, with an energy that usually made her the most lively person in the room. But that day, she saw something different. As she bustled around the diner, her eyes kept drifting back to the father and his daughter. She could see the father's exhaustion, the kind that only comes from a long daily battle. She saw the girl's frustration, her eyes filled with a sadness that spoke of too many struggles for one so young. Sarah knew the weight of life's challenges. But what struck her was the father's quiet desperation. He didn't ask for help. He didn't demand attention. He just tried to make his daughter feel like a normal kid, feeding her the best way he could, even if it wasn't enough. Without thinking twice, Sarah made her way over to their table. She paused for a moment, unsure of how to approach. The father was still trying to feed his daughter, looking increasingly defeated. He didn't notice Sarah approach at first. "I'm here to help," she said softly, almost as if speaking to herself. She didn't wait for the father to respond, instead, setting her notepad down and kneeling beside the girl. The little girl looked up at Sarah, her eyes wide with surprise, but she didn't push her away. "I know it's hard," Sarah said gently, "but you can do it. Let's try together, okay?" Sarah didn't try to take over. She didn't rush the girl or make her feel small. She simply guided the girl's hand to the spoon, speaking in soft, encouraging tones. It was a slow process, but for the first time in the meal, the little girl smiled. A small, shy smile, but it was a smile nonetheless. Sarah patiently let the girl try on her own, offering help when needed, but never taking control. The father watched this interaction, stunned. For the first time that day, his shoulders seemed to relax. The stress that had been weighing him down lifted slightly, just enough for him to breathe. The father said nothing at first. He simply watched, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions: thankfulness, relief, maybe even a little pride in his daughter. It was as though the moment wasn't just about eating anymore. It was about something deeper, something more significant. When the meal was finished, The father reached for his wallet to pay, but Sarah stopped him. "No charge," she said with a gentle smile. The father looked at her, disbelief crossing his face. He tried to protest, but Sarah shook her head. "You don't need to pay," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You've got enough to handle." The father stood there for a moment, caught between his pride and the overwhelming kindness. Sarah had shown his daughter, who had been so quiet throughout the meal, looked up at him and gave him a small smile. For the first time in a long time, the father's burden seemed lighter. He didn't have to struggle in silence anymore. He wasn't alone in this fight. It was as if Sarah's small act of kindness had opened a door he hadn't known was there. A door to a moment of peace. The two of them walked out of the diner, the father pushing the wheelchair with a renewed sense of calm. As Sarah returned to her duties, she didn't expect any recognition. She didn't need it. It wasn't about the praise. It was about the small things, the quiet moments that no one else might notice. She simply wanted to make a difference in someone's life, no matter how small. The other diners had no idea what had just happened. To them, Sarah was just doing her job as usual. But to the father and his daughter, she had changed everything, even if only for a moment. As the days passed, the father returned to the diner with his daughter. They were regulars now, always coming in for their quiet meals. But the difference was palpable. The father seemed lighter, more at ease, and the little girl had a bit more confidence in herself. There was something different in the air, something that couldn't be explained, but was felt by everyone who watched them. Sarah would always greet them with a smile, never drawing attention to the past. But there was an unspoken connection between them. The father never forgot her kindness, and it stayed with him, a quiet reminder that there were still good people in the world. Word of Sarah's kindness spread quietly through the diner's regulars. Some customers came and went, unaware of the small miracle that had taken place. But to those who saw it, it was a reminder of the power of compassion. People started to look at each other a little more carefully, noticing when someone might need a hand, even without asking. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't a life-changing moment in the traditional sense. But it was enough to make a difference, to start a ripple of kindness that would affect everyone involved. Years passed, and the father and daughter continued their visits. The girl, though still facing her challenges, had grown stronger. The bond between them had deepened, not just out of necessity, but out of love and respect. And Sarah? She eventually moved on from the diner, seeking new opportunities. But she never forgot the father and his daughter. In some way, she knew her life had been changed just as much as theirs. She had learned the power of kindness, the kind of kindness that doesn't expect anything in return, but changes lives anyway. In the end, it wasn't the meal that mattered. It was the moment of human connection, the quiet understanding that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can leave the deepest marks. And that, in a world that often feels too busy, too loud, and too distant, was enough. And so, what started as a simple meal turned into a moment that would forever change a father and daughter's life. The quiet kindness of a stranger reminded them that even in the hardest of times, there's always a spark of hope. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming tales.